Hey guys, welcome to TCM Live. I'm Larry.
And I'm Seth.
And we are here.
We are here.
Yeah.
We're ready to go. I'm so excited.
I am too.
We are starting a new series today, and I've got to tell you, I have been so excited all day long for this thing.
Yeah, and we're talking about
Fear.
That's right.
Yes.
This is going to be there's going to be a couple of webisodes in this series, and I think you're really going to like it. In this first webisode, we're actually talking about, and I think it was the best way to start this out, fearing the unknown.
You know, I can tell you, I used to live with my grandparents, and I was telling my grandmother about this just the other day. I said, Granny, you have got the absolute freakiest hallway I've ever seen anywhere. Have you ever seen a movie where the character is looking down a hallway, and as they look, the camera switches focus, and it looks like the hallway like extends all of a sudden? And,
Stephen King's The Shining?
Yeah, something like that, right. And I told her I'm expecting two girls at the end to tell me to come and play with them forever. It is the freakiest hallway I've ever seen. And I remember when I was 5 years old, living in her house, I would go into that hallway, and it would be dark the whole way down. I would have to literally run to get out of the thing. I was sure the stuff was chasing after me because of the fact that I didn't know it was on the other side. You know, fear of the unknown. So I mean, usually we're dealing with much more serious stuff than that.
Yeah, but we all fear things.
Mm-hmm.
We all fear things. You know, even when you look into the Bible, you know, the Bible is full of people who were scared at different times in their lives. They were fearful. They were fearful for their lives. They were fearful for their occupations. There are a million things that we get scared over. You know, even back in Athens, where they even had the just to be on the safe side to cover all their bases, they had the little altar for the unknown God, because they wanted to make sure. They were so scared that they were going to miss a God that they had like the altar to the unknown God. You know, so, I mean, throughout any religion that's ever been on earth, throughout any civilization, there's always been fear. And the greatest fear, the root of just about every fear, is the fear of the unknown. You know, and if you look at Scripture, where we're going to be at today, one of the deals we're going to be, one of the books we're going to be Mark 4:35 through 41, which I think is really cool. But first, I want to let you know this, give you a chance in case some of you are following along and you want to pop open a Bible. Researchers at Johns Hopkins University reported that about 40 years ago, the greatest fears of grade school children were, number 1, animals, number 2, being in a dark room, number 3, high places, number 4, strangers, number 5, loud noises. Seth, would you mind reading what today's kids are afraid of?
Today, kids are afraid of divorce, nuclear war, cancer, pollution, and being mugged.
Wow. Yeah, grade school kids are scared of being mugged. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
You really think about it. But, you know, on a serious level, though, you look at this stuff, and, man, that just really breaks your heart to know that in a roughly 40-year period, that the number one cause that it's got here, the number one thing that people were scared, grade school kids were scared of, was animals, followed by number 2, being in a dark room, have gone to now being number 1, divorce, and number 2, nuclear war.
Yeah.
It goes to show like what we're always talking about, of how our world is in this constant state of decline. You know, and you even look back towards biblical times. You dive into the Bible where we're at in Mark, and it talks about Jesus calming the storm. Would you mind reading that for us?
Mark 4:35 through 41. We're in the New Living Translation. And here's what it says. It says, as evening came, Jesus said to his disciples, let's cross to the other side of the lake. So they took Jesus in the boat, and they started out, leaving the crowds behind, although other boats did follow. Soon a fierce storm came up. High waves were breaking into the boat, and it began to fill with water. And verse 38 says that Jesus was sleeping at the back of the boat with his head on a cushion. The disciples woke him up, saying, Teacher, don't you care that we're going to drown? And when Jesus woke up, he rebuked the wind and said to the waves, Silence, be still. Suddenly the wind stopped, and there was a great calm. Then he asked them, Why are you afraid? Do you still have no faith? The disciples were absolutely terrified. Who is this man? They asked each other. Even the wind and waves obey him.
What does that speak to you about faith, Seth, when you think about that, when you read that?
Well,
What does it speak to you about fear and faith?
I think that it's so funny that you've got these guys that are in the boat, and they've already seen Jesus do all these incredible miracles. And now the storm comes along, and they absolutely freak out. They just lose their minds. But there's Jesus sleeping with his head on a cushion. Yeah. The boat is getting tossed and turned, and it's nearly capsizing. There's thunder, there's lightning, waves crashing over the side, and Jesus is just chilling downstairs, hanging out on the bed, sleeping.
Yeah, and it's important to remember also in this, though, that some of these guys were fishermen.
Yeah.
These people.
So they knew exactly what they were dealing with.
Yeah. They'd grown up at least close to the water. And some of them were fishermen who actually grew up on boats, learning how to fish and this and that. And so when you think about this, sometimes you're like, oh, they just freaked out. Weather and stuff. Yeah. These guys were used to storms. They were used to things like this. They were used to weathering things like this, going through things like this. And this was a storm that was so bad that even they were scared and they were saying, oh, God, literally, God, help us, teacher, help us. We're going to die. Aren't you worried about it? We're going to drown.
Yeah. It's just so funny, that Jesus is down there sleeping while they're freaking out. I think that is just a perfect picture of how we look a lot of times. Yeah. That we're absolutely losing our minds because things are unraveling around us and things don't seem like they're working out. But, I think 80% of the time, I just grabbed that number out of the sky. I don't have a stat on that. But I think 80% of the time, the stuff we worry about doesn't actually happen. Yeah. And so often I think we're just losing our minds, and really Jesus is at peace because where Jesus lives, it's already taken care of. Yeah. And Jesus already knows how the story is going to end. And I think that we would do well to just remember that while we're losing our minds, Jesus is at rest. And if he is at rest, then I think it's safe for us to be too.
Yeah, someone once said, this is an unknown quote I found, but I really liked it. It says, sometimes the Lord calms the storm. Sometimes he lets the storm rage and calms his child. And I think that's very important for us to remember because we like to think that God's going to take care of everything exactly the way we think he's going to take care of it because, in the end, deeply rooted in fear is fear of not being in control. We've created this illusion that we are in control of everything. We're in control of what we do. We're in control of what we say. Something that you find out really fast when you've been around accident victims. People who have been through accidents, people who have had things go wrong with their bodies, that they are even, that we are even fooling ourselves into thinking that we're in control of always being able to get up and walk to the door. And I know our own Brian Brown, he's had his fair share of problems with stuff like that as far as being in accidents and coming back from that, healing his body, literally healing from accidents. And, we fool ourselves every time we turn around and we build this false sense of pride, this false sense of being in control, when really we're not. The Bible tells us that, look, you're either serving God or you're serving man. And we know who man serves, of course. When man turned his back on God, God said, look, I really want what's best for you. I want to do all these things for you. I want to take those fears away from you. I want to give you peace and I want to give you comfort. It's not just going to be complete easy going, but, I want to be here for you. And what we basically do on the whole is turn away and say, all right, we're going to live our lives the way we want to. So God said, okay, you go ahead and do that. And we turn around and fuss at God. We turn around and gripe and sometimes curse at God when things happen because we feel like that he should have been in control when we don't want to give him control in the first place because we want to keep that control. It's kind of like a cat chasing its tail. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
You're never going to catch it. True. You're never going to fully understand it until you submit to God and realize that you don't have control over anything. This fear that you feel, this fear of the unknown, you've got to be able to get a grasp on that. And the only way that you can do that is to recognize that even as you physically get a grasp on something, that it's just like sand going through your fingers at the beach. That you're going to have God there with his hands over yours in order to truly have that peace and not have that constant fear of the unknown.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I think that's totally true. We spend so much time trying to keep control over stuff, but then the moment that things start slipping up, we start completely losing our minds, and we get so scared. That's because we just rely on ourselves for so many things. Mm. But what I love about God is that He has said, "Come and give it to me." And He said, "I can take those burdens off of you, and you don't have to be afraid because I can handle it." And I think a lot of times, if we would be well served to just start taking our burdens and our concerns and load them on God, because He can handle it. Yeah. And you don't have to be afraid that He's going to fail. I think it's Jesus that said in Matthew, He said, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and heavy laden." And you can also throw in those who are full of fear. Yeah. He says, "And I will give you rest," or "I will give you peace." And He says, take my burden on you. He says, because the burden I have is much lighter than the one you carry. Yeah. He says, take on the burden of following me, and I'll take on the burden of making sure that everything works out for you, that when your boat gets rocked, I'll be the one to calm the storm. Because you can't. You can't calm the storm. And I think we would be well served to start considering that. Do you realize that the Bible has a lot of commandments, but the one commandment that appears the most in the Bible is fear not. Yeah. Fear not.
Yeah, and the cool thing about that is this, God wants us to come to Him. Jesus, like you said, Jesus said, "Hey, come to me. You got all this stuff going on. Give it to me, and I will give you peace. I'll give you rest." Well, here's the thing. Our world is so busy, and our world is selective when it comes to accountability. One of the ways that the world expects you to be accountable is to always be doing something and always take care of yourself. Now, we've got it totally messed up when it comes to accountability, and we've talked about that before. But in this one area, you're supposed to own up to your fears. You're supposed to really just grab your fears, and you're supposed to be responsible for them, and you shouldn't have to ask for any help. And when it comes to Jesus, man, if you go to Jesus with your fears and you try to dump things on Him, that's just getting rid of them. That's just ignoring them. That's just pushing them off to the side. Well, if you listen to what He said, He didn't say anything about that. He said, "Bring them to me, give them to me, and I'm going to give you peace. I'm not going to make you just totally forget them. I'm not going to make you gloss them over where they weren't that important or anything like that. I'm going to empower you to be able to look at your fears and say, I'm tired of you having control over me. God is bigger than you are. And He is going to give me peace on this because there's nothing I can do about it anyway." Those test results that are coming back, whether it's cancer or not, there's nothing that I can do about it. Does it worry me? Yeah. But am I going to let the fear grip me? No. My parents might divorce. I really don't want them to. I'm scared that's going to happen. The fear is right here in my heart and in my mind, and I'm having trouble sleeping. What am I going to do? Well, there's nothing that I can do except pray and turn to God. He's going to be there to comfort me. My boyfriend and my girlfriend is having problems, and I just love them so much, and I just want to keep them. They're the one for me, and they're trying to pressure me to do things, but I'm just scared I'm going to lose them if I don't do this. You see, the common thread in all of this is fear. Fear of the unknown, not knowing what is going to happen in your life. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do with this knowledge that we're presenting to you? Because see, here's what God says about it. In Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, it says this. It's a New Living Translation. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek His will in all you do, and He will show you which path to take." Because you can either take the path that is going to cause you to just keep freaking out about it and just make your life miserable. And you know what I'm talking about. You've been there. Some of you are there right now. You're allowing these things to weigh on your heart and your mind, to distract you from what you're supposed to be doing or what you want to be doing. And it's just making you utterly miserable. It's affecting your appetite. It's affecting your schoolwork. It's affecting your relationships. Because you don't have any fingernails, because you've bit them all down to the quick, because you just don't know what's going to happen. Or you could take the other path. The one where God says, look, Jesus says, look, remember I said, come to me. Bring this stuff to me. Pray without ceasing. Come to me and give me all of that stuff. And we as Christians, we as believers, we have a duty. Not like a directive where we have to do it, with a cold heart. We have a duty to come around people That's one of the ways that God works to help dispel fear. I love it whenever I'm talking to some of you guys here at TCM and I've got a problem and it's like, Seth, I've got this going on. I'm kind of worried about this. I'm scared about that. And Seth's like, oh, well, I've been there before, man. Not exactly the exact same situation, but I've been there before. And this is what I did. And this is how it worked out for me. And I hope it works out the same for you, but maybe this gives you a little hope. And you know what it does? It gives me hope and it gives me encouragement knowing that someone else has been there. But too many of us don't like to admit that we have fear, especially us men, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Us guys, we don't have fears. We're tough, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, egos. Yeah. We've got to learn to open up. And girls, especially girls with the gossip. You're scared to open up about your fears because it goes all around the school before you even get the words out of your mouth. That's got to end.
Yeah.
That's got to end. You've got to be able to take these things and live in accordance with the way God says that you're supposed to live. Yeah. So you see, this whole fear thing, it can totally be controlled by giving it to God. You don't have to fear the unknown. Because in the end, the Bible even says, in the end, God is going to make all things known. Everything is going to be known to us in the end. Now, that doesn't mean like in the end, like, okay, next week will be the end. That means at the end of time, we will have that knowledge. We will know. So I don't know about you, but that comforts me, Seth, knowing that even though I don't know a lot of things right now, believe me, I don't know a lot of things.
That's true.
Yeah, and most of them out there will agree. They've been watching the show long enough. I don't know a lot of things. But quit laughing. But, one day we will.
Oh, yeah. And here's the thing, not only have we been called to not fear, and to take our fears and give them to the Lord, but we've been called to take the freedom that we gain from handing over our fears. We've been called to take that freedom to others, and share it with others, and help them, just like you just said, get over their own fears, and. And you've got a quote right here from Robert Louis Stevenson. I'm going to read it if that's right with you. It says, keep your fears to yourself, share your courage with others. Keep your fears to yourself, share your courage with others. That's from Robert Louis Stevenson. He's a great poet and writer. And that's so true. That's what we've been called to do.
Yeah.
It's exactly what we've been called to do. We've been called to come to Jesus, give him all of our cares, give him all of our concerns. But then once we've done that, take that same hope and give it to other people. And that's one of the worst things about fear. It's not that it keeps you from being the person that you've been called to be and living the life that you have been destined to live, but it keeps you from being able to help others enter their destiny and be who they've been called to be. And that's so we've got to get to a place where we can get out from underneath the bondage of our own fears so that we can help others unshackle themselves from the bondage of their fears.
And that's one of the greatest and last steps that most of us take right there. It's so ironic. Of those of us who have been through a lot of things, we've given over that control and we're really trying to walk with God and we're really trying to do the best we can. But it's ironic, we have a fear of reaching out and helping people get over their fears or know they're not alone. So we've managed, with God's help, to conquer our own fears. It's just that whole reaching out and having that responsibility and that duty and that love to not want someone else to go through what you've went through. And so that's what we've really got to look out for. Yeah. We've got to look out for that. I'm not going to say it's necessarily the final step, but it's a huge step.
Absolutely, yeah.
So don't be scared, guys. Don't be scared to reach out to people that are hurting. These people that you see are just clutched by unknown, especially like I know since we're youth pastors, deal with a lot of freshmen going into high school. And man, some people just take right to it and they go on. But others, that first year, they stay scared to death. They huddle up.
I was terrified.
You literally see them huddle up and just go to their classes like little mice because it's fear of the unknown. Their whole world has changed. What if people came around them in their time of need like that? Seniors, juniors, sophomores, just came around them and allowed them to feel loved and let them know that, fearing the unknown, you don't have to do that. You can embrace the unknown. Look, let's discover, let's wake up and it's like, oh, cool. I'm a freshman in high school. It's a new day. Let's see what we got today. Let's see what I can experience today. And some of them out there, man, it sounds impossible, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. It starts where you're at. Each person in the sound of our voices. It starts where you're at. You do not have to fear the unknown. You can embrace it. With God's help, you can conquer that fear.
Absolutely.
And most importantly, I think, as making disciples of Christ, you can help others to do the same.
Yeah.
So you're going to want to stick with us here for this series. You're going to love what we have coming up. We want to invite you guys to join us back here. Same bat time, same bat channel. And remember, what's our tagline?
You are not alone.
You're not alone.
You're not alone.
Have a good night.
God bless.